So, hello and a wonderful good morning. Welcome to Gamescom Congress.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for joining us here in Cologne or also live on Twitch and on YouTube. So, hello to all the people out there on the screens. My name is Viola Tensil. I'm going to be your host for this stage today. I'm very happy about that, to do this again. And with me is, of course, our program director, Toby Kopka.
Welcome and happy to be here. And thank you. And I'm very happy that you made it already through the queues outside.
Yeah.
So,
more or less. So, Toby, tell us, how huge is the program this year? I mean, how many stages?
We have like 9 stages and workshop rooms over the whole day for over 8-9 hours. 180 speakers, so that's really a lot in 77 sessions, debates and workshops. So it's really in very different fields, from immersion, well-being, innovation in games, in education, science and economy. And of course, responsibility is also an important topic this time. You will see, and all of you have organized already your sessions, I hope, because there's much going between the different rooms.
Yeah, I wish we could clone ourselves so we can follow all the program stages.
We try to make it difficult, yes. So you have to choose a bit.
Plus, as I already mentioned, we are also live streaming. So if you are watching us via live stream, you've already met our host, Dirk, who's also live reacting on some things, like what we say right now. Dirk is now live reacting.
Exactly.
So it's a bit scary.
So the program will switch between German and English depending on who's leading a session and a talk, and also in the live stream it will switch back and forth.
Yes, and mainly the stream will follow this stage, but they also have additional program like cool mini shows and extras. So yeah, that's it for our short introduction. Thank
Absolutely, we start right away.
Yeah, and I wish you all a great day here at Gamescom Congress, and we'll start with our first speaker. Yeah, let's just dive into it. So this is YLan Boureau. You are the founder and CEO of ThrivePal, a company that helps you reach your goals via AI coaches. So this sounds pretty interesting. And before ThrivePal, you have spent like 18 years doing research in...
18, but 8 at Meta. So.
Okay, now I have to read it. Cognitive neuroscience, and you tell us how games speak directly to our experiential system. You definitely have to explain that to me, what that is. So welcome to the stage. This is YLan Boureau.
Hello. Does that work? Yes, great. I'm sorry for being a bit frazzled and everything. I kind of made the mistake of taking a car, not thinking there would be like 10,000 people, and then the car was saying it's going to take 15 minutes, and then like 10 minutes and he was saying it's still taking 25 minutes now, so I had to like run. So this is me having run a lot. So, but I'm very happy to be here. And what I'd love to tell you about today is how we can use games for things that are outside of game, for real life, how to make real life better, and how to leverage what games do fantastically so that we can make the rest of our life better. So, I want to start with this image here. So let me try to see if this works, if I click. Yes, great. So in case you don't know about this image of the rider of the elephant, I'm going to say briefly what this is about. It's a metaphor from Johnson Haidt's book from 2006 called The Happiness Hypothesis. And so in each of us, there's like 2 ways of operating. One that works more like an elephant. So think a lot of power, it's very strong, it can do a lot of things. And a rider that has lots of ideas for what would be great to do, but it cannot really move itself, it's weak. And it needs to convince the elephant to go where it wants to go. So the rider makes the plans and the elephant is the one that walks. And if you can convince the elephant to go where you want to go, it's going to be great. But sometimes the elephant just wants to have a good time and it's like, no, we're not going to go this way. We're going to go that way because it seems more fun. And games are really great at talking straight to the elephant and speaking its language. So what we're going to do today is... why is it not moving? Okay, great. We're going to look at some traits that make games compelling and fun. So I'm sure a lot of you know already that, but we'll quickly go over a few aspects that are different dimensions that are in a way independent from each other. So you can have one or not the other, you can have all of them, many games try to have all of them, but some are more interesting than others when you try to use games to change some other aspects of life in general. And when I say life in general, I mean not just personal life, but also how we interact with each other, how we understand the world. And we'll also look at how the brain works in relationships to that. So as it was mentioned in the introduction, my main background is as a research scientist. So I did like nearly 20 years of research studying either experimental psychology, so how people make decisions and how we decide to control ourselves sometimes and other times not, and how we decide what's a good thing to do. And also in artificial intelligence, trying to study how systems that are artificial can learn. So a lot of my talk is going to try to map why games are so compelling to how our brain works and how that means some different things for some aspects of what make game fun compared to other. And then we'll try to translate that into patterns for improving our real life based on games. So the first thing that we all know is that games are really compelling and fun. The numbers don't lie about this. I didn't put stats on there because I think you all know about that, but around like half the world plays games. Even people who say they don't play game, if you ask them, oh, you don't play games, but do you play word games? They're going to say, yes, I do every day. And they're like, that's a game. So lots of people spend lots of time playing games. Often they play them for a long time. That means they tend to do them more than they intended to. You're like, oh, I'll just do a small session of 3 minutes. And then an hour later, you're still playing and you don't know where the time went. And people are having fun, which means that while they're doing it, they don't feel like they're making themselves do it. It's the activity itself has a pull that calls them when they're not doing it. And once they're doing it, they want to do it more. So that's something that they choose to do. Now, if you contrast that with some important real life things, so that's the elephant who moves you through life. It's very sad when you say, hey, we have to do laundry, or we have to work out, or we have to run, we have to do these kind of things that are effortful and not fun. So a lot of life is this conflict between things we think we should do, but no matter how much we think that's a great idea, in practice, we kind of don't walk there. We're like, that's a great idea, but I could do that tomorrow, and today I could do this fun thing instead. So there's a big gap between what we want to want, but in practice we don't really want them, and what we actually want for real, which often is games. So why are we enjoying games so much? Here are 4 different aspects. I'll go over each of them quickly, and then I'll delve more into 2 of them that are more interesting for how to transfer things to real life. The first one is intermittent reinforcement, which is just a fancy way to say you don't really know when you're going to get a reward. You get them often, but not always. And it's like a slot machine. Every time it could be the next one that you just get that rare thing that you've been waiting for so long, and you just missed it, but perhaps it's next time. And we know from animal literature, and there's a lot of this, you can do that with pigeons, with rats, with everything, that it's much more effective to keep an animal working. It's much more effective to withdraw the reward than to give it all the time. So if you reward them all the time, they kind of get bored. It's predictable. At some point, they stop doing it. But if you use something called frustration, which just means that every so often you just remove it, they will work twice as hard because they're waiting for the next time they will get their fix. And so by using this trick, you can get animals to repeat behaviors way more than if you're just rewarding all the time. Now, if you think purely like a mathematician of like, I'm trying to get as much reward as I can, this sounds counterintuitive, but it's a very, very robust finding. Some people like also to mention like bad relationships that are a mix of being super great and being super bad, and that creates some kind of addiction that's more compelling than when everything is stable and nice, and then we kind of get bored. So that's one power of game, intermittent reinforcement. We're going to talk more about this after. Then trial and error in a constrained, bounded, well-defined environment. So when I say constrained, bounded, well-defined, that's as opposed to life, which is often has lots of things that we don't control. It has lots of parameters that we don't expect and that are very random. Like you can plan to go somewhere and there's a hurricane or something like that. And it's not bounded. In a game, it's a very well-defined universe where you kind of know where the limits are. In life, it's way more vast. And it's Also, life is often not well defined. There's not a goal. We don't get points. We can give ourselves points, but often they're the wrong one. We go like decades chasing something, and after 20 years of working so hard, we get it, and we're like, I don't like that. And that's too late. You spend your 20 years. So for that, games are really good. And when we look at why that's important for people, we can turn to research, very well-known research of positive psychology on how a sense of autonomy and control is crucial for intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is the term psychologists use to talk about something that you want to do, that we don't have to pay you to do, you just want to do it. And for psychological well-being. So this sense of autonomy of control means you feel like you have agency and the world reacts to you in a way that's predictable and that you understand, as opposed to random things happening and things being very unfair. And the sense of, at the same time, not only control, but also a sense that you matter and that your choices have a big influence. In a game, you're often the main character. When you do things happen. Whereas in the world, you can think, what I do does not matter so much in the grand scheme of things, because the world was not really designed to make you have fun. So that's the second aspect. I'm not going to talk more about this because I think this is a thing that's true for game. It's hard to change that about the world, and because we don't control so much how the world works. Now, something else that I'm not going to talk much about, but that you probably have seen a million times, is flow channel diagram, which means trying to keep difficulty at the sweet spot between being too hard and being too easy, so that people are always engaged. They're kind of always at the edge of what they can do. It's doable, but still a bit hard. So that's the flow channel diagram from the flow book from, I'm going to butcher the name, Mihail Csikszentmihalyi. So I'm not going to talk more about this, but basically, when games are managed experience, game designers work so hard to make sure you're in that flow channel. Life doesn't really work like this. You get long periods that are very boring, that are too easy, and then it's too hard, and it's like a bit chaotic. And finally, the one I'm going to talk more about as well is that games work through exploration, trial and error. So this little elephant is on a bicycle, because when you learn to ride a bicycle, it's not like someone sat you down and told you, this is how you ride a bicycle, page 1, and then they explain to you what to do. That wouldn't work. So you learn in an experiential way by trial and error. You tried lots of things until finally you did not fall. So that's very powerful learning, and that's how lots of animals and humans learn most things. And games are really, really good at doing that, because they have this huge trial and error experience, repeated experience pattern that life often doesn't have. So I'm going to talk more about these two. We're going to start with intermittent reward. So an issue with intermittent reward is that they're basically like a drug, in the sense that they're very compelling, they're addictive, and they're compulsive, and they narrow your focus so that you just want to do more of that, often at the expense of other things, like having sudden tunnel vision where you're like, I'm just going to press that lever again and again and again. And when I say this, you have heard of stories about some gamers who die playing games because they forget to eat or something. You can do the same thing with rats and a liver that's very addictive. They're going to press it until they stop feeding themselves and they die. So these kind of things where you can really go very far with how compelling this is. That does not mean that people are enjoying it. That's a very important aspect of this. You might have heard sometimes the phrase dopamine is a pleasure neuromodulator. That's actually not true. It's not about pleasure, it's about wanting to do something and it feeling compelling. And very interesting research that tries to take mice and turns off certain genes that help you produce dopamine, show that the mice can still feel lots of pleasure, enjoyment of things, but they stop wanting to do things. And so you can have this dissociation between wanting and enjoying something. Enjoying is more like opioids, think more like morphine as opposed to cocaine, if you want to think of drug parallels. And so wanting something just means that your behavior are going to show you voting with your feet to do it. It does not imply that you're having fun, that you enjoy doing it, or that you feel happy about it. So it's like an itch. Sometimes if you've been bitten by a mosquito, you know you don't really want to, well, perhaps that's a bad example because actually it feels good to itch a bit, but you're going to regret it. But there's some stuff that people have to do, and they don't even want to do it. They're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I have to do it. And you can really reproduce that behavior with dopamine. You can make a rat do whatever you want just by stimulating all those areas. So there's a huge body of research, not controversial at all, that what you see as behavior being reinforced does not mean that the animal doing it is enjoying it. And then something else is you can really totally enjoy it. You can have a great time. But yourself from in a week might hate you for doing this right now. So there's this book by George Ainsley from 1992. It's very old, but it's really fun, called, I think the name is Psychoeconomics. So psychoeconomics is how you arbitrate all the conflicts between yourself right now and yourself in 1 minute, yourself in 1 week, yourself in 1 year. So all the conflicted selves that have very different ideas about what you should do right now. So this is for all these things that are really fun, but they're not really moving your long-term goals, and so you're going to disappoint yourself. So for all these reasons, intermittent rewards, they're a very tricky tool because it always works, and you see people responding to them, but that doesn't mean that it's a good thing, and so it means that they can be used for good. It's like an engine. They can go to a good place or a bad place. So I'm going to go over 2, let's say, devices that can help us master this engine. It's like jet fuel for motivation, for helping leverage those goals that we have trouble accomplishing, like doing laundry. Well, I mean, I don't know if a laundry game, but something like that. So how can you use that engine to lift something that is very heavy? That's the first technique. And then how can that, in turn, build some kind of self-limiting boundary to that thing that you want to do forever? This is a kettlebell holding the hand of a little TV show. So the idea is that if you watch too much TV, that's kind of my own thing. Often I try a show, and then I think I can totally stop after 1 episode, and then like 7 seasons later and 4 days later, I'm like emerged from my days. And so, you know, it's this thing that once I start doing it, it's this tunnel. So if you do this thinking, okay, I'm going to do this, but only when I'm on a treadmill, then it's going to be limiting because the thing that's hard creates a boundary on the thing that's too easy for you, but the thing that you want to do pulls the thing that's hard. So an example of that you might know is the game Zombies Run, where you have to run away from zombies, but you're actually running. And I think, I've never played that, but I think the base premise is you have this tape that plays zombie story, and at some point the zombies start chasing you, and then you have to run at least 10% faster, otherwise they catch you, something like that. So the idea here is that running is hard. So even if you really love the game, you're not going to run for 2 days. But if you don't really like running and you need something to motivate you to get out of the couch, then playing the game is going to play that role. So that technique is often called temptation bundling, because you take something that you're tempted by, something you want to lift, and you pull them so that both of them are kind of taking the strengths of the other to form a whole that's more helpful for you. So I really like that. It's very applicable to lots of things. So that means trying to make sure that whatever dynamic is doing a lot of pulling in your life can also pull something that you want to pull but you have trouble pulling. Now, the second aspect, the elephant on the bicycle, learning by reading versus learning by doing. So there's two aspects to this. The first one is when we make decisions. In our brain, we have 2 ways of making decisions, at least. So that was a lot of my research was on this, how we decide to make decisions. We have this big, like, smart brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, that makes plans. Try to see how one decision affects another, and you're thinking, oh, if I do this, then this will happen. If this happens, then that happens, and so I can see the consequence. And then you have the trial and error that says, when I get here, I go right and good things happen. Now when I'm here, I go left and good things happen. And you learn it just by trying lots of times, and you kind of have this bin counter in your head that just keeps track. Oh, this was good, this was bad, this was good, this was bad. That's the dopamine system. It does that. It's deeper in the brain, and it just helps you move. And you're not really kind of conscious of it. It's not like you're telling yourself, left so far is at 37 and right so far is at 22. No, but your brain does that for you. So for many people, learning a complex system piece by trial and error works much better than trying to do this whole algorithm in a head. When I say in the head, no, I mean consciously with your prefrontal cortex that like thinks and does stuff. And then the second aspect of this is declarative versus procedural memory. So that's what I mentioned about the bicycle. I think there's a very nice historical experiment that shows how we learn with our words and our memory, like our verbal conscious memory is very different from what we learn by trial and error. So there was this amnesiac who could not remember whatever was happening to her. I don't remember if it was a she or a he, but anyways, let's say it's a woman. And the doctor made an experiment where he shook her hand, but with a kind of like hairpin hidden in his hand. So he stung her hand while shaking it. And she's like, ow, why did you do that? And he's like, well, we'll see. The next day she comes back, she forgot everything about the day before. And when he extends her hand to shake her hand, she kind of whispers, say, I want to shake your hand. And he asks, why? And she has no idea, because she doesn't remember. But her hand remembers that last time we did that, we get stung, I'm not doing this again. So that's where your body has learned something with that whole basal ganglia dopamine system. So it knows we're not doing that, but you kind of don't know what happened. And so that's the dissociation, which is, again, has tons of research showing that. I put on a few references, but there's way more of this that shows this very, very strong dissociation between those two systems. And games are really, really good at doing that, learning by doing things. So now I want to mention another thing, which is that we want to build bridges, not escapes toward infinite ease. What I mean by this is that games can give us exactly what we want for that thing, that they're controllable and fun. And there's like two backfiring modes. The first one is that we risk withdrawing from reality. You can think of the Matrix, where everyone's having great steak, but they're actually plugged in a machine. And so do you want to the real world, or you just stay in your couch and escape? Which, unfortunately, we'll also have to deal with nature, which means that often if we don't move, bad things happen, these kind of things. Backfiring mode 2 and 3. First, it's tempting to just reward the virtuous behavior. So a kind of standard way of thinking is like, oh, if someone's not eating vegetables, I'm going to reward them in some ways to make them eat the vegetables. And the problem is, first, that if you try to then translate that behavior and you stop giving them money for eating the vegetable, people just stop eating the vegetable. And second, perhaps more trickily, this is this little reward cannibalizing the intrinsic rewards, is that once you start receiving rewards for something, your brain kind of goes, oh, if I'm getting paid to do this, probably it means that I actually don't like doing this. And you devalue the thing. And that's a very robust finding. It's not just psychology experiment. You can see this is the real life graph. I'm going to put it bigger. This is for more punishment, but this is the plot of how many kids were taken from daycare by their parents late in some Israeli daycare. So I think at week 4, oh my God, I was not at the microphone, sorry. At week 4, people starting giving fines for when your parents were not taking the kids in time. And what you see is that with the fine, people starting taking their kids even more late, not less. And so at week 16, they said, oh, let's remove the fine, it's not working. But then the behavior even increased because people were like, oh, it's actually cheap daycare, now it's free, and it's even better. Because people, by paying for this, they assumed they had kind of done an exchange, and so they were evaluating it as an economic operation as opposed to just picking up my kid is something that good people do. And so then they were like, oh, actually, $10 for 1 hour of daycare is actually not bad. And so they kept doing it. So when you start putting something in the realm of like extrinsic reward, you kind of can't walk it back. So that's the second important aspect, is that you can't just put rewards. And sometimes it's also that you don't want to just assert top-down that a behavior is the right one. You want the player to come to the right answer by understanding that complex system and making the conclusion themselves. So this, if you come away with this talk with just like 4 points, these are the 4 that I think we should try to use for leveraging games for improving the rest of life. The first is to leverage mechanics for intuitive nonverbal learning of complex systems. So that's that procedural learning where we learn by trial and error, rather than by being explained things. Second is this idea of bundling temptation to use the jet engine to pull something that we need, but that we're having trouble to want, something we want to want. The third one is to try to blend verbal explanation and procedural hands-on learning to create mappings between conceptual and intuitive understanding. So it's not like you have to choose between explanation of something and trial and error learning. You can do both and say, hey, these are the two sides of the same coin. And then the brain's going to make this connection, it's going to reinforce both of the types of learning. So trying to pair systems learning by trial and error with the explanation for what that is. And the last one is to keep extrinsic reward, points and stars, which are super great for giving feedback, as feedback and a jump start to get people invested in doing something rather than primary fuel, because at some point they're going to backfire. Now, a concrete example is my company, ThrivePal, what we're trying to do. So we have 2 intertwined companion apps. One of them is the coaching app, where we teach people how to do things by explaining them to them. And the second one is a cafe management game. So this is a prototype I did myself with like coding tools. That's super early. It was just a proof of concept. I'm working on it just to show people what I mean. And we're going to turn it into a real game. But right now it's like super buggy. And so, yeah. But the idea for these two is that they explore two sides of the same concept. So on the one side, it explains something to you, and on the other side, you play with it so that by trial and error, you can see what that means and kind of feel it in your bones intuitively. So a concrete example, if you think about routine momentum. So this is a screen capture of the a coaching app that explains that. So the snowball effect, which means that once you do something once and it works, then the next day you want to do it, it's easier to do it. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. So I can say that, and we say that. And when you're looking at that, you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. And it's like this one time, this one blip in your consciousness that you thought this is an interesting idea. It doesn't mean that it's going to register so much. But now, this is screen capture of my toy game. So I don't know if I can play video. Perhaps it works, perhaps not. I don't know. No. Okay, so I expected the internet would be too bad for me to play the video. So these are screen captures. But so this is a little cat that shows you stuff about how to run a little cafe. And at some point, to energize yourself for the day, you get these morning practices. And so let me try to see if I can zoom in. So at the beginning, when you start doing the practices, you see you have an unlimited number of actions. So I think on top, you see I have 19 out of 20, and they recharge once every 10 minutes. So, and if you do your routine the first time, it's just going to take the full amount of actions. But then every time you do it again, the cost decreases a bit, because now you have reinforced this association of the morning with that, which is really what happens in practice. The more you do something, the easier it gets because it becomes automatic. And then the next day when they show up again, the price keeps decreasing because they've done it. Now, if they skip it, what happens is the price goes up. And so we just have this very simple dynamic where whenever you do the same sequence, the price gets multiplied by 0.9, so it doesn't feel that much, but it's a bit less. And then it increases again when you skip. So that's an example where this routine momentum gets completely intuitive in terms of feeling the reward directly in terms of success and the cost. And you know how players get so good at figuring out what they need to do to save actions or make more money in the game. So that's the kind of thing where they would figure it out very quickly. And in particular, why it's not clicking? Okay. Yeah, so in particular, what we're trying to avoid here, sorry, it's a bit smaller, is to just give extra point for doing routine, because that would be one example of extrinsic reward where people think, oh, if I'm being paid to do routine, it means it's not that great. And to make routines unrealistically powered. So it's so great that when they try in real life, they're like, oh, I got lied to. It's actually not that great. So just trying to keep a certain amount of balance. So thank you very much for going with me on that tour of what in-game we can use to leverage the rest of real life. And the 2 points that I really want to emphasize is, first, to use systems to build intuitive gut understanding of systems. If there's a big, complex system that you want people to understand, you teach it with systems. And the second, to use temptation bundling, to use the jet fuel of games to lift behaviors that are very hard. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, YLan. And we still have time for your questions. So we always, after our talks, we have like 5 minutes Q&A time, if you are willing to answer questions. So is there anybody who has a question? Yes, over there. Sasha is coming with a microphone.
Hi. Do you think that video game that rewards you to play every day is optimized, or is there any better solution to do this?
So it really depends. If it's something that you really have to do, and there's like no way you would ever find this interesting or be interested to do it, then it can really help like push you over so that you do it. It can also be a little trick that adds this little punch that some days when you don't feel like it, again, tide you over. So it really has a place. Now, it's less good than if you find a way to make the activity so compelling that you want to do it without requiring that device. But I would say it has a good utility in some cases. It's like when you need the help, it can help a bit, but it isolates you a bit from figuring out if you can really get people to like the activity for itself. So,
thank you.
More questions for YLan? No, everybody's happy? Okay, so maybe I have one question for you, because I was wondering, so I think how you organize your day, how you organize your life is totally different for some people. Some people rely purely on logics, for example. Some people rely purely on emotions. So how can games or AI coaches like differentiate what people need? Because some people like to be pushed, some people like to be like have suggestions, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it's a really interesting point because people are very different. So for example, in our coaching app, we try to first get a sense of people, literally in the onboarding, there's a question on whether you look more towards striving, like reaching higher, or savoring, thinking, I like what I have, I'm going to be content, because these are very two different modes of being, and they have very different ways of being. So you have to figure out what people want and what it is that thriving means for them. That being said, there's some laws that everyone is subject to, so we're all natural beings. That means that nature and how our bodies work, even if we feel like I would love to spend my whole life in a couch, we still need to move. No, but seriously, there could be a universe where that's not a problem. But as embodied being, we have some rules that we cannot escape. And so, like health in particular, even if we say, I mean, I was a very picky kid. I wanted to have, let's say, French fries every day. Not super healthy, but I was getting away with a lot of French fries. But my mom kept saying, no, but you still have to eat vegetables. So these are the kind of things where like there's a disconnect between what I want and what nature dictates.
Yeah,
so there's a bit of that. Yeah.
Yes, of course. Okay, thank you, YLan. Thank you so much for this opening keynote at the Gamescom Congress. We'll now take a short break, and then we continue at 10:45 with a fireside chat with Brandon Green. You probably know him as Player Unknown, so stay tuned. Thank you.